Today we're taking a close look at my Quadra 700 that is tucked away there underneath my Macintosh SE30. I got this legendary Macintosh last year and I couldn't believe that I actually got hold of a Jurassic Park Mac for a rather good price. I thought we might finally take a tour of it and finally see what it's capable of doing. Why not look at some social media, for instance? So let's get on with it. Here in my very small computer room I have the Quadra in the horizontal position and hooked up to my modern, or relatively modern, Dell LCD screen. As we can see there. This Dell is great, by the way, with the 4:3 ratio and the built-in speakers. Ever since I got hold of the Quadra 700, however, I wanted a more original setup for it. I recently found a Macintosh color display which resulted in a power Macintosh haul that I covered in a previous video, and we also had a quick peek at the setup with the Quadra 700 in that video. Let's get the Quadra out and have a closer look at it before we set it up the way it was intended and try to do some things with it. Here we have the front of the computer, and I really like the design of this case. As you can see, however, it is somewhat unevenly yellowed, and it does have some unfortunate branding into the plastic. The yellowing I will try to deal with in the future with some Retrobrite, but there isn't much I can do about the melty plastic in the branding. In this particular case, no pun intended, the branding is a reminder of the computer's provenance, which I actually happen to know something about. If we take a closer look at the asset tag there, we see that it says BAF and a serial number. This was the business information division of a very large Swedish publishing company, Albert Bonnier. The man I bought the computer from had worked with the publishing of a business management magazine in the 90s called Chef, which means boss in Swedish. He had been using this very Quadra to set the text of that magazine. When I got this computer from him last year, he also gave me the latest issue of Chef magazine to go with it, which is still being published. And here it is. This issue was of course edited on much newer hardware, but I think it's neat to have gotten this from a journalist who actually worked with this magazine on this Macintosh back in the day. There's also a sticker on the case there that says Leo inside, which seems reminiscent of the Intel Inside stickers. I was very much intrigued by this. What is this Leo inside? When I got this computer, it had some blue metal brackets attached with pretty strong double-sided tape on the bottom for standing in a vertical position. I managed to get them off with lots of isopropanol alcohol and prying. The original rubber feet were not included with this computer, but I managed to find these soft 3D printed ones on eBay, which actually works great. They are for placing in the vertical position though, and they go on like so, and in all four positions to stand on. For putting it in the horizontal position like this, I've just put some transparent feet, as you can see there, to keep it off the surface. Before we open it up and look inside, we can take a look at the ports here on the back. So this is the power in, and this is the pass-through for the monitor. Here we have a power button that can be sort of locked in the on position if you power on soft with the keyboard. Here's the Macintosh display port, and of course when I use my VGA screen, I have to use one of these adapters. Go in here, and we plug the VGA in there. We have this SCSI port for external things. Here is the built-in network port, and for this I need a dongle that I'll show later that I use to connect a ordinary network cable. Here we have two serial ports, a printer port and a modem port, two ADB ports for mouse and keyboard. Here we have sound out and sound in. And here we have two slots. We see this one is empty, and in this one there is something that looks like, they look like VGA ports. And this is a clue to what this Leo business is, and we'll have a look at that once we open it up. I didn't like this gaping hole though, and this is kind of set inside, and I had a look in eBay and I did actually find these slot covers that fit here, so I've been using it with this. And amazingly, because this is set inside, one can actually have the slot cover on, although the slot is populated. And I think that looks much better. Here we can see the Macintosh Quadra 700 on the case and the serial number there. And here we have the fan grill, which is part of the power supply that is sitting here behind the case. Although the orientation of the logo on the front does indicate that this case was designed to stand vertically, the case is otherwise identical to the popular predecessors, the Macintoshes 2CX and 2CI, which both came out in 1989. When we want to open the Quadra 700, it's apparent that it has to be done in this horizontal position, lying down. I found this hilarious ad, by the way, for the Quadra 700 from 1991 when it was launched. Here the computer is in the third position for some reason. It looks pretty random, I wonder why. Once in this horizontal position, the Quadra is very easy to get into. You just lift these two tabs and this top comes right off. If we turn it around like this, we can see the hard drive here, and the floppy drive is mounted here underneath. This is the large 400 megabyte hard drive that seems to be the original. I imaged this in a previous video, and I used a blue SCSI in here for a while. I have, however, reconsidered my own retro computing philosophy slightly, and I decided to try to run original hardware as long as it lasts, even if it does make a lot of sound. I'm sure I'll be putting a blue SCSI in here in the future when this drive inevitably does fail. The drive assembly here is held in place by only one screw down here, and then it clips right out, and the PSU is only held by clips and can be lifted right out once the drive assembly is removed. So let's get them both out so we can have a look at the logic board. And it looks like I have it kind of unscrewed already. So you have to remember to remove this little hard drive LED from the case so it doesn't get stuck there. And then we can lift out either the whole drive assembly or just the hard drive. So the hard drive sits with these two clips here. Just press them in. And the hard drive lifts right out. We disconnect the Molex cable and the SCSI cable there in the back. Put the hard drive over here. Actually, I found the jumper settings online for this drive, which was pretty sweet. So I taped it here on top so I can make use of it in the future. And there are the specifications of the drive. It's a Seagate drive, 400 megabytes. And to get this drive assembly out, there's a tab here in the back, so you have to unscrew this screw that I'd already done. And then there's a tab here at the back that you push out.
as this pushes out. And if this screw down there is really released, I'm going to take this little screw picking tool that I have and take out the screw from down there. So this one single screw holds this in place. And we press on this tab, like so. And there's also a tab. We have a look down there. The drive assembly has a tab that reaches down underneath the power supply there, so this has to be pulled out like this, and this has to be pulled in that direction. And with those two pulled on, it should come right out. Actually, once you pull that tab away from the power supply lifts out. Then you can do the drive assembly. So let's do it in that order instead. So I pull on that tab, wiggle the power supply. Of course, the power supply is connected, slides like this, and the power supply is connected straight to the motherboard with this connector. There's a fan inside the power supply that makes some sounds, and I've considered changing it for a silent to a fan, but I think I'll stay with this original hardware for now and maybe change it to something more silent in the future. But yeah, this has proved quite reliable so far. Now that the power supply is out, we have this tab on this side. We can push this out like this. I disconnected the floppy cable as well from the motherboard. And here is the drive assembly then, with the floppy drive stuck there underneath, and the hard drive that goes on top, like so. And here we have the logic board exposed. I'll remove these cables so we can take a closer look. Here then is the logic board. I was happy to see that the battery hadn't leaked, and the caps were actually looking quite good as well. And as we can see, they're not electrolytic caps, but tantalum caps, and yeah, they don't leak as easily, which is great. There we have the Motorola 68040 processor under heatsink at 25 megahertz, and of course the Quadra name was introduced for denoting the faster 040 processor. There is 4 megabytes of built-in RAM in this computer, and with 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 16 megabyte sims of RAM, it can be maxed out at 68 megabytes of RAM. But my Quadra here has 4 megabyte sims, so it has 20 megabytes of RAM in total, which is already a lot for a machine in 1991. As we saw from the back, one of the Nubo slots is populated, and let's take it out and take a closer look at it. So as you can see up there in the corner, this is the Leo, apparently, as advertised with the sticker on front. It says Leonardo XL, and seems to be a German company there. Hermstedt GmbH 91. And I couldn't find much on this online, but judging from some software on the original hard drive, it seems to be an ADSL modem of some kind. This is the front, some kind of slot here for a daughter board, the PDS slot there, and this is how the back looks. Looks very nice and tidy, but these connections really do look like VGA ports though, not as many pins. Do let me know in the comments below if you've seen anything like this before. So the onboard 512K of VRAM can support 640 times 480 at 8-bit and 1152 times 870 at 4-bit. And as we can see here, the VRAM slots for additional VRAM are unpopulated on this machine. But if we populate them, we can max this out with VRAM, with 2 megabytes of VRAM, and then it will support 832 times 624 at 24-bit and 1152 at 870 at 8-bit. And I do want to upgrade it to 2 megabytes of VRAM, but this is about $100 to do, so I'll have to wait with that. RAM was even more expensive, of course, back in the day, and this high-end computer itself cost $5,700 back in 1991 when it was launched. Adjusted for inflation, this is more than $12,700 in today's currency. That is quite a staggering price in a relatively small package, but very capable, of course, back in the day. No wonder it was popular for graphical applications such as publishing. As I mentioned, the Quadra 700, along with the simultaneously released 900, were the first Macintoshes with built-in Ethernet support. We saw the AAUI interface on the back, and with this transceiver, we can plug in a standard RJ45 Ethernet cable from a modern router, and then this into the back end of the Quadra 700 with the AAUI, and get this thing on the internet. If I turn this thing around a little bit, we can take a quick look also at the reset button assembly here, and also the speaker assembly that actually lifts right out of the case like this as well, and is connected there to the motherboard. But I'm going to reassemble this now, and then let's set it up the way it was supposed to be. Well, as you can see, I have some seriously space constrained here in my little room, but we have the Quadra 700 set up together with the Macintosh color display. So let's power it up. And yeah, the hard drive sound is pretty loud, but there's a click there as well, which is normal. And here the screen, or the display, kicks alive. And of course, this is a CRT, so it's flickering in the image, in the video, but in reality it's very still and nice. And yeah, I really like the way this looks with the Apple Extended Keyboard 2. So because I don't have a battery in the machine, there's an extension that puts it in 32-bit mode, so it starts up, and then if it's not in 32-bit mode, then it restarts into 32-bit mode. So this is why it restarts. Of course, there was another image on this original hard drive, but I saved that image off elsewhere, where we have the software, for example, for this Leo ADSL network card, and I put a new sort of operation system or another image that I had onto this hard drive with some games and stuff. But yeah, I'm going to zoom in on the screen and let's see what we can do. As you can see here, we have the Netscape Navigator browser, and yes, we can actually browse on the internet. So let's double click on this and see if it loads a website. As you can see, the flicker is not as bad. I changed from 30 frames per second to 24 frames per second, and this seems to make a difference. And here we have it, 68k.news, and yeah, the headlines. This is pretty awesome. So I've connected this now to my modern router with the Ethernet cable, and we can read today's headlines. So what's the top world news? 31 dead after gas explosion at barbecue restaurant in China. Dozens injured in central Paris after gas explosion. The cool thing with this website is that you don't need a proxy, because the website already is sort of stripped all the heavy stuff for modern computers, and so old computers can read it. If you want to surf on other pages that haven't already done this, then you need a proxy, and we could take a look at that as well later possibly. But for now, let's check out something else. Well, first we might want to just have a look at the specifications of this computer, and you can see that this is the Macintosh Quadra 700. As I said, I have 20 megabytes of RAM on this computer. We can also try out this application Macstodon that actually allows you on 68K machines to look at posts on Mastodon and also actually post stuff, and you need to have the Web 1 proxy activated, which I have on my modern computer, and I'm on BitBank Social. So let's try to log in here and see how it does. So this is Macstodon 0.4.3, and let's see if it actually works. Look at that, home timeline, local timeline notifications. Of course we can't see any pictures, but we can read about this. Let's click on a toot and take a closer look at one of them. Click on this one, and then it says loading toot. Then we can see the avatar of the tutor and the toot. If I want to post a toot, I'll press here, and let's write something. Let's write testing to see if Macstodon on my Quadra still works. And yeah, if you're watching this video, go over to Macstodon and see if it was successful. So I'm going to toot this. Connecting, done, tooted successfully. Well, let's hope that is true, but yeah, do check it out. And yeah, that's Macstodon on the Quadra 700, actually doing social media on the original hardware here. So we have the transceiver and the hard drive, and there is no emulation. The only modern thing then is the web proxy on my modern computer that we'll take a closer look at and see how it's configured to make this work. But in order to direct the Macintosh to the proxy, I'm using internet. We go to programs here. I'm using internet config 1.4, and in the firewall section, here is the IP address of my computer that I'm using the proxy on, and the port for the Web 1 proxy. And with this and the proxy set up on my modern computer, the Macstodon does work. But let's take a look at the Web 1 proxy on the modern computer as well. There's a slight whining sometimes in this CRT. I don't know if capacitors need to be changed possibly soon, or if it's a power problem. I know that I'm supposed to be changing the capacitors of the power supply in the Quadra 700, of course, at some point as well, and I need to retrowrite it and fix the case a bit. So there's definitely things left to do. Maybe I'll put an Noctua fan in the power supply as well, possibly. But so there are some things to do on this Quadra 700 before it's in top-notch condition. But I rather like this setup with the Macintosh color display and the Quadra 700 there next to it. So Macstodon is developed by Scott Small, and this is the GitHub page with excellent instructions on how to set it up. There's also a link to Web1, the SSL stripping proxy that you need to set up on a modern computer. And the instructions there are good as well, so you can get that set up on your modern computer and get access to Macstodon on your 68K machine. I'm really happy with the Quadra 700, and it has really become my main color 68K machine. Although I'd like it permanently set up with the Macintosh color display in the future, I'm quite happy running it with the Dell here for day-to-day use. I don't have the space for a permanent CRT setup right now, and the Dell's built-in speaker is great and the picture is after all better. As I said, I'm sure we'll be returning to the Quadra in the future for cosmetic and performance improvements. But that's it for this video. If you've enjoyed it, I'd appreciate if you hit that like button, and if you like more retro computing coming your way, do consider subscribing to the channel. Take care and thank you for watching.